and start the slideshow with the agenda. And of course, the recording message blocked my menu. Um, okay, so we are going to have, as always, a couple of words of wisdom and inspiration. Our substantive thing is going to be the plan for getting ready to get out the vote. We're going to have three fabulous guests, Attorney General Rayfield, Sierrah Williams, and Representative Finger-McDonald, and then a role play. And then we actually have a ton of good of the order things, a lot of stuff coming up. So we'll try to leave time to go through that. And before I turn it over to Susan to do the first quote, if you're just joining and you haven't checked out that Victor Orban was soundly defeated today, it's inspiration for us.
The domains of democracy. I'm a believer in the almost sacred space of the street and the power of what happens there. I was really struck by LOLGOP's, that's a writer on Substack, his citation of the three domains in which democracy is defended or lost: the ballot box, the courts, and the streets. His point was that no single one is sufficient, and that the streets, far from being the weakest, are the foundation on which the other two rest. And that's from Solnit
And there
from
sure
March 20th.
were a lot of Polish people being really happy in the street today. Okay. Carol, you need to unmute.
Audio on. Okay. Looking for a simple, straightforward talking point? The only minority destroying this country is the billionaires. Trans people are 1% of the population. Undocumented people are 1% of the population. We are all focused on the wrong 1%. And that's from James Tellerico from Texas.
Thank you. Okay, and our ever-present don't panic, organize. So the timeline, and I'm looking particularly here, is that at the next Zoom in 2 weeks, we're going to do a refresher on the database and minivan. But because we don't record it because it includes looking at specific data, we're going to do another one for people who can't come on the 26th and hope that the 21st works for them. So we'll send out the link for that in good time. You are going to, our goal is for everybody to have what they need to be able to access it, both the online lists and the campaign material by next Sunday to Monday, the 19th through the 20th. And we want to just remind everybody that even though we're the team and we do this stuff, we're just volunteers like you. So we're doing our best for this one. And it's a lot of herding cats, and we're pretty sure we'll get that done. Watch for emails, both telling you your list is ready in the database and also where you can pick up information. On the 23rd, voters' pamphlets will be mailed. It's already existing online. In a couple of slides, we have a link to that. And then ballots go out on the 29th. So anytime from the 29th on is a great time to be canvassing. So again, two Zooms to go over the database and minivan. If you've been doing this forever, I don't think there's anything you don't know, but if you haven't yet, those will be useful. You'll get your voter list in the database. That's where you can download it and print a paper copy. At the same time, it will be available in the phone app in minivan. And again, you will get the email will come from notifications@nlp.org. And then everybody gets to decide, do you want to use paper? Do you want to use minivan? What works for you? So outreach materials are going to be available in Albany, in Lebanon, in North Albany, and in Corvallis. And I said the week of April 20th. We'll try to get it done on Sunday. We'll see. Different materials for different counties. In Lynn County, we put our resources into a postcard we're about to look at. Benton County has a flyer. Individual candidate literature, we offer candidates the opportunity to give us literature, and then we provide you the literature that we have. Not all candidates, many of the contests are not competitive, and people guard their resources for the general. But I do know that in Lynn County, in House District 11, you're going to get something from both Sierrah, who is running for the Senate district, and from Ivan, who's running for the House. We always have bookmarks, contact cards, and lanyards available for people who don't have one yet or tragically misplaced theirs. And then Benton County has put resources into getting cello bags, but not Lynn County. They are just getting super expensive. So, Carrie.
Yeah, I'll just add, so yes, the Benton County, we are doing cello bags, but actually we are not doing bookmarks or contact cards. We're going to have the, Benton County Democrats flyer instead. And we went cheap on name badges a couple cycles ago. And so rather than lanyards, we've got the little pin on ones. So just to clarify that.
Okay. And here's our postcard for Lynn County. We love this. Woo!
Ooh, beautiful.
I know. And this is the back. So you can write a note to voters, and I do all door to door, but I write the address and name, which helps me. I use that as actually my voter list when I go around. Okay. We are leaving these slides in this PowerPoint just because we think it's useful to have everything in one place. And it's a quick list of what's on the ballot. There are two things that we're updating, and they are highlighted. And one of them is in Benton County, there will not be a Corvallis School District Board recall measure. The signatures were not submitted, so that will not be on the ballot. And then the other thing we've added in the useful websites is that the online voters pamphlet is available, and that is where you can access it. And that will have everything that's in your voter pamphlet, and in particular, it has statements from candidates. Okay, and again, we invite only one candidate per office. Nobody who's appearing tonight is running competitively, but regardless, and this goes for when we canvass as well, and we're going to look at that in a little bit in the role play and then a debrief, that regardless of how passionately we may support a different candidate for the office, we treat everybody as an invited guest when we are on these Zooms, and we treat all our candidates with respect and gratitude when we're going door to door. These are the questions that we developed and have asked our candidates to respond to. Attorney General Rayfield is not running for office, so he's going to be talking about both the governor's race and I hope he'll also talk about the threats to elections and how Oregon is defending our elections. And I know that Representative Finger-McDonald is going to talk about the state ballot initiative as well as anything else that she wants to talk about. And I don't see it is and so I am going to stop sharing. And do we have Attorney General Rayfield on yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, anybody have any questions as we wait? Okay. Um, well, okay, I have only one thing to say, and it's, I was gonna actually tell Corinne later, but I know you're going out of town, and we will have postcards available if you want to take them and send them when you're gone. So I can get them to you sooner if you need that. Okay. And I know that Sierrah's on, but I hesitate to get you started because I think the Attorney General may join any moment. Carrie, you are.
If we have a minute, unless Rayfield has come on, I did get a question on my phone at home about specific to Benton County, a judge's race, where we have the Benton County Democrats endorsed a candidate by one vote and didn't endorse the other one. It was just like a one vote difference. Many people are supporting the other candidate. So just a reminder that because we did not endorse, we will not be carrying the other candidate's literature. However, like we'll talk about this later, if it comes up in the conversation and you are supporting that candidate, you are free to say that your personal opinion about who you are supporting. So if that, since that came up on here, just to take care of that. And the other thing I'll add, which we can talk about later too, is Nancy said, we make available the literature that candidates have given us, and oftentimes they give us different amounts. So we will carry the literature of every candidate, whether we personally support them or not. But sometimes we don't have literature for every candidate in the race because we just haven't been given enough. So I thought that might be a good filler for the moment.
Okay. Well, for those of, I don't think anybody is brand new. Usually this works like clockwork. We're not having clockwork, and apparently I don't have a routine that I'm going into to take up the time.
Nancy, why don't you do a role play while you're waiting?
Because I mean that would be a great idea. I'm just concerned we're gonna have to cut it short. What do you think, Susan and Carrie?
How about if I introduce him?
Okay.
For anybody who doesn't know Dan Rayfield, Attorney General Dan Rayfield is a lawyer in Corvallis and was our state legislator for House District 16 for 10 years. And throughout his time in office, he built a reputation for being accessible and committed to helping his constituents understand important issues. In 1922, when Tina Kotek became governor, Dan was chosen as Speaker of the House. He was elected at Oregon Attorney General in 2024. And from the moment he took office, the Oregon Department of Justice has been engaged in a nearly full-time battle with President Donald Trump's administration, having been involved in somewhere around 53 lawsuits at this point. Hi there, I'm introducing you right now. Earlier this year, Dan led a coalition of 12 attorney generals in a lawsuit challenging the administration's imposition of tariffs, arguing in front of the Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of the states. And he is currently leading a second lawsuit, along with now 23 other state attorneys generals, over continued efforts to impose tariffs. In addition to our attorney general, together with 22 attorneys general and one governor, recently filed a lawsuit challenging a new executive order that would limit voting. So we are always happy to welcome Dan Rayfield to join us and to speak about whatever he thinks is important.
Well, how is everybody doing? That was a way too nice introduction. But like again, I always say this would be nice to see everybody in person sometime soon. So you let me know when we're all getting together in person this summer when the weather's nice, and I'm happy to be there. Obviously I live close by. I still live in Corvallis. We're not moving or going anywhere. So that's just for a little bit of background. So it's always easy to get together. I thought maybe what we could do is just like be more responsive to the things that everybody is very interested in right now. And I'll maybe talk for a little bit, but then just open it up to questions about how like things that you would like to know or things that might be helpful as we wind up for the elections this fall. And maybe that's really where I want to start. Probably the thing that I get asked the most right now is, what can I do? How can I help? And what I want to just start off by, putting all of this in context is what's really going on in our country right now, because when you put it all together, it's pretty overwhelming. I think is a really polite way to put what's going on right now. In just a good context, since I came into office as Attorney General, we filed over 61 lawsuits so far against the Trump administration. If you remember when President Biden was in office, or you remember when President Obama was in office, I would always hear of these Republican attorneys general filing these lawsuits. A lot of them were lost. Some of them were won by the Republican attorneys general, but I always felt that it was incredibly partisan. And so to sit here with 61 lawsuits filed, it feels a little bit hypocritical that we're touting a lot of these things. But what I always like to do is think about the third-party validators, right? To talk about these cases. If we were losing them all, that would be one thing. I would agree. I'd be an incredibly partisan AG under those circumstances. The fact is, we're winning almost every single one of these cases. That's what's absolutely wild. And we're winning them with conservative justices, and we're winning them with Democratic justices. So it's a very interesting time to be where we are. And all of that really is a symptom of what's going on in our countries. You have a president who, like many presidents before, is trying to expand executive power, and he's doing it in a way that no other president has done. He's really put on the gas in a way that is challenging, stressing our systems of democracy. And I think this is where you start to look at the totality of what's going on in America right now. First, let's start off with elections. This is a president who wants to regulate and govern elections, right? And we've said no in the Constitution when our framers drafted the Constitution. No, it goes to Congress, and when Congress is silent, it goes to the states. And frankly, it's been working really darn well for the entire existence of our country. So you have challenges to our elections. We have challenges to free speech. We have a president who is using his agencies, one way, pressuring agencies, pressuring mainstream media. Think about the Jimmy Kimmel incident, right? Where they're trying to squelch the voice of editorial voices in our media by threatening access through the FCC. Alternatively, what you're also seeing in a different way is they're pulling back and greenlighting mergers of different conservative media where we're losing editorial voices. Here in Oregon, one of the mergers that we're contesting right now out of the Oregon Department of Justice is Tegna Nexstar, which would effectively take four stations, four editorial voices in the Portland area and move it to three. And we would likely see the other two condense and consolidate again, where then we've only got two. And this is a part of the plan. And you see these very political statements being made by the president to pull back from this enforcement of antitrust laws. So just know that in this one place, we're attacking speech where we're coming out. We are attacking our judiciary system, right? So this is a president, when he gets a result that he doesn't like, he starts calling for the impeachment of justices. He starts putting pressure on Congress to then impeach justices. You have a president that's leading through fear. And the list goes on and on when we start looking at the different ways that he's trying to usurp power. If you look at the funding of issues, so Congress sets and appropriates money. The president doesn't get to hold that money hostage. You have to follow the laws of Congress. And that continually is an issue that our president is going on, again, stepping outside of his lane. And again, that's why so many of these lawsuits are successful. You have, and all of us know, the fear in community right now. Every county in this state, all 36 counties, people in this communities are living in fear in the way that they are using ICE. And if you think about ICE and the culture that they're creating, they are putting people in place that are misstating the laws of our country, misstating our Constitution, and are creating a culture that is not protecting people, but attacking people within our country. So you have this very unique dynamic that we're seeing. So when it gets back to these, what is important right now, I think when you look at the president's agenda, a lot of the things that he's doing right now, he could probably do in some ways if Congress would go along with him. But Congress isn't always going along with him. And so this upcoming election in the fall, for me, is where we can hopefully take a deep breath. We've been going nonstop at the Oregon Department of Justice because we are kind of this last line of defense, right? Getting in the courts, pausing the actions that are going on. What we really need is a Congress, a Democratic Congress, to draw a line in the sand, to be able to pull back from the president's agenda and be a second check on the president's power. Because right now, Democrats, except in the Senate, where they've got the filibuster, are effectively, have their hands tied, I think is probably a good way of putting it. I think our congressional delegation can speak better to that. So that's where I see all of us, where right now we're in April. We're going to be winding up very shortly to the fall. And then we just have to ask ourselves, how can we help in this moment? And really what it is gearing up for November. Then most critically, and this is the thing that, because I love seeing 49 people in the participants. This is like fantastic. I will tell you, and I will always remember this, the first Democrat meeting post the 2016 election, we had a ton of people at these meetings. And you know what happened after 2020? They all went away. And it is this cycle that keeps going on and off. And we need to make sure that our energy continues year in and year out for all these elections, which is tough, right? Because we're busy with, like family and other things that are going on. So I know it's tough, but we can't be lackadaisical, because I think what we're seeing right now is hitting a really low point for where we are as a country. Whether it's the wars of choice, whether it is attacking like our fundamental systems in a democracy, or just livability in our communities. So I'll be quiet for a little bit, and I just wanted to share. I think there's so many different ways where we can be successful in the fall, from local elections all the way up to our federal elections. So,
Dan, speaking of elections, we were hoping that you might talk to us about the governor's race. Voters are going to see a dozen or more names on their ballots for governor. And it would be great to have some talking points about why this matters and why their vote for governor matters this year.
Yeah, and what I would always say is, if you were, you should get someone. I just want to preface this, because if I was the candidate in any situation, I had another candidate speaking for me, I want to put a big asterisk next to everything I say, and always listen to the Kotek campaign before you listen to me. So I just I say that with the absolute, love in my heart for elections. But I think from where I sit and how important it is, we have two very important roles. The governor is an executive for all 80 agencies. The governor has the ability to control the actions of those agencies. I advise the governor under certain circumstances. We have complete authority as the attorney general to file or not to file lawsuits. So in some circumstances, all these lawsuits would have been filed and we would have been drawing the line in the sand. However, if the governor doesn't want to cooperate with us, that creates a problem. So think about it this way. When we filed our tariffs lawsuit, the first tariffs lawsuit, it was very important that I had cooperation with all of the agencies to be able to learn about the economic harm. So we often call, the health authority, we're calling the universities, we're calling all of these different folks, and you have to have cooperation to be able to draw that line in the sand. DMV, when they were purchasing different goods, some of our funding cases. If I don't have the ability to talk to our agency, if our governor shuts that off, that will impact every single one of us here in this state. And especially now more than ever because of the way the Supreme Court has ruled. If we are not a part of these lawsuits, we, in a lot of cases, will not get the remedy that comes from those lawsuits. Because there's been a sufficient narrowing of what they used to call universal or national injunctions in the way that these things were done. So it's incredibly important for me to have a partner in the governor's office that we're working together on a lot of these different things. And that's incredibly important. I think the other incredible important thing is as we're sitting there fighting back against this, the national side of the world, think about all of the bills that the legislature passes. When you put a governor in that office that is not aligned values-wise with where we're headed as a state, it gives that governor an incredible amount of power to veto or frankly just impact the negotiations during a legislative session with a veto. Think about reproductive health. Now watch this. During this last session, one of the things that happened was we had nationally, the Planned Parenthood was targeted effectively in HR 1 based upon their exercise of the speech. And they went out and targeted dollars that weren't really for abortion. It's preventative care, it's life-saving care, it's cancer screening, you name it. All of this care, and they targeted that funding to Planned Parenthood specifically. What we did in Oregon in the legislature is we backfilled that funding to make sure while we here at the Oregon Department of Justice had a lawsuit filed, Planned Parenthood had a lawsuit filed. So we're kind of coming at this in every single angle. If the governor is in office, especially when an end of session bill, a governor can line item veto that funding. Okay, these are incredibly important things that the governor plays a role in. Then there's just the day-to-day administration of agencies and how they work together with all of us in this state. So when you think about healthcare as a human right, that is going to be impacted and directed on how the governor spends in those dynamics. It is incredibly important that you have a governor that is aligned with the state's values. And right now, I won't sit there and talk badly about any of the candidates running. They're not my cup of tea on the Republican side, obviously. But what I can tell you is it would be a dramatic shift as a state to go into a different direction from all of those different reasons. Again, what you're going to hear from the Kotek campaign, and I haven't, just to be very blunt, I have not been following the primary and where things are right now, but they will have some really specific messaging. The one thing you'll know about Tina Kotek when I served in the House as Speaker and even before that, very focused on some of the biggest issues right now. So that would be housing. She's then pivoted into education. And right now, I think she's starting to work on the economic development side of the state of Oregon. So you kind of got those three big issues. And the one thing about Governor Kotek is when she digs in, she's all in on those issues. And she pushes and works incredibly hard on those things. So when we were in the Oregon legislature, first thing that we did in partnership was pass one of the largest housing packages that the state has seen. It was still a drop in the bucket of what we need in the state, but incredibly big steps. Since I haven't been in the legislature, they've really been focusing on education and doing some reforms. This next session is going to be incredibly important. The stakes are very big. With HR1, you're going to see significant deficits for this state because there is a pullback of what they call the hospital provider tax that is going to come in. And so we're going to have funding questions with our schools. We're going to have funding questions with how we fund healthcare as we know it here in this state. So it's going to be incredibly difficult things that are going to be going on, and we need to make sure that we have the appropriate folks at the table, and that would be Governor Kotek.
Thank you so much. And I see Linda has her hand up.
And that was really nerdy. Like they're going to have much more
No,
snappier talking points.
actually, that was perfect.
Okay.
No, and it's the governor is really busy, so we don't even anticipate her coming in for the primary. But
Yeah.
when voters think they're going to see a name on the ballot, and then when they see a dozen, it throws people for a loop, like what's going on. So having talking points is great. Okay, Linda.
This is about the suit that's going on for vote by mail.
Yeah.
How much do we need to worry about this? Is this something that is going to affect the primary? Should we be concerned, or do you think the lawsuit will succeed?
I'm always concerned. I think our lawsuits will be successful. It is not going to impact the primary. Even if they want to, the timing just could never work. So just I think about the trend of what's going on with the president right now. So first off, and some of you may remember, we had our initial lawsuit on one of his executive orders. Goodness gracious, maybe that was last April, and we were successful. Then you had the federal government suing us for information. And we've been defending that and then have been successful. Then you have the president going nationwide trying to redistrict, okay, trying to grasp power. And this is one of those realities that he knows once he loses Congress, all of his power is out the window. And that is a big deal for him. And so instead of playing by the rules, he's trying to rig the system and take control of our elections. So that is why you're seeing this fear-based mongering when it comes to the SAVE Act out in Congress, right? And now he's trying to threaten Republicans' primaries to get that filibuster overturned, right? So he's trying Congress, he's trying executive orders, and now he's coming back and doing his next step, which is attacking vote by mail using the Postal Service in his most recent executive order. Now, the most recent executive order, just for those to know, it's very broad in the way that it talks about things, right? It's about creating a national list that they're going to, of all voters. The problem with national lists is they're not as responsive and accurate as state lists because we're closer to voters. We can be more nimble. So every federal list, and especially with the timelines that they have set out, are just actually not in partnership with the timelines of states. You're going to have an inaccurate federal list and a very nimble and accurate state list. This has just been the way it has always been. State lists are always just more accurate. Then what they're doing is they're coming in and start talking about using the Postal Service about getting a list of who should get a ballot delivered in the mail, and effectively changing this dynamic where the Postal Service will be a gatekeeper for folks to get their ballot, as opposed to the way that we in Oregonians for like more than 30 years have viewed the Postal Service as our conduit to exercising our right to vote. And it really shifts this dynamic. And so there's a lot of concern about that. Now, we don't know what that list is going to be. We don't know how they're going to make up that list. And so that is where the concern is. All of those things cannot happen by the primary. We feel very confident in the lawsuit moving forward. As this, even if we were unsuccessful, wouldn't happen in the primary. We believe the lawsuit will be successful as it kind of starts winding through. But I think when I say the concern is not necessarily with this issue, it's with the issue that they are willing to say and do anything they can to retain power at this moment in time, and they are going beyond the pale when it comes to our elections, right? I mean, I don't remember any time where politicians openly talked about gerrymandering their districts, right? I mean, think about Indiana. I think Indiana has all but one Democratic representative, and I think it's 8 Republicans and 1 Democrat or some weird thing like that. It's 6-1 or 7-1, and they wanted to make them all Republican. how the heck does that even make sense mathematically, right? If you look at the percentages of the votes. So it's absolutely wild. And the shame of it all, and this I'm just going to editorialize, the shame of it all is we as Democrats are then forced to respond. And if we don't respond, we're abdicating this imbalance that they're trying to do. If we do respond, we're gerrymandering too, right? And that is the shame of the situation that we're in right now.
So
That's just an editorial on one. So
and I'm watching the clock, but it's fabulous to have you. So we'll have one more question from Susan. And then I know there's a question from Lauren in the chat. And if you can stay a little longer
yeah,
and chat back, that would be great. So Susan,
Thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing for the whole country, not just Oregon. Really appreciate that. My question is about another opportunity we have for direct democracy, and that's the initiatives and getting something on the ballot directly from the people. So my understanding is it goes through the Secretary of State's office, but then the language comes out of the Attorney General's office. And I was interested in learning more about that, but I didn't really see anything on the website, your website. So I just am curious about the process and how where that goes in your department and how citizens can know exactly like the right way to go about writing the language that we submit.
absolutely. So this is a really good question. I love this one. This is actually something we reformed when I came into the office. And what I will tell you is some of our reforms are going to frustrate some people who want to influence and have more of a political influence in the titles, the ballot titles. But I think it's the right way to do these things. So normally, what would happen, right? And I'll do it not normally. Let's talk about what actually does happen. Someone decides, hey, we'd like to file a ballot petition, right? We want to go gather the signatures, whether it's locally, and you would go through the county versus a state petition where you're doing something for the entire state. When you're doing for the entire state, you're going to file, you get your first 1,000, I think it's 1,000 signatures, and that says, hey, we're going to take this thing seriously and we're going to draft a ballot title. First, signatures get verified by the Secretary of State's office. Then once that is done, the language of what you have, so the bill or the initiative language, then shifts over to the Department of Justice. And it is, think about it, it's just like a law that legislators would pass, right? It is all the different things that are going on, and there's the specific language, but we have a statute that says you have to create a ballot title. And a ballot title is actually more than just a ballot title. It has word requirements, not only for the description. There has to be a short description, there's a title, and then there's a long description. You have the yes, no. It's actually a very formal thing. When we say ballot title, it is actually a very formal set of things that you have to do within certain word requirements that you must abide by. That goes into the Oregon Department of Justice. Now, in the past, the executive office had a lawyer, and by the executive office, that would be the people that work around me. There was an attorney that worked with some of our appellate attorneys to then put their hands in the cookie jar, if you will, and craft the language, which would then be sent and be finalized. You would then get comments. The public gets to comment on that ballot title. People review the comments. There's an edit or edits. And then there's a final ballot title. Once there's a final ballot title, that ballot title can be appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then looks at all the different arguments and determines whether or not that ballot title is appropriate under the standards of the laws. And so, very common process. Internally at the Department of Justice, one of the things that I wanted to do is I don't want to have a hand politically in the drafting of ballot titles. What I want is the public to have trust that there is not, just because say I like a given ballot, right? And I'm a political person and people might know that I really like a specific thing. What I don't want is the perception from the politician that I'm influencing the title to get an outcome. I think that is bad for our trust in government. So we actually reformed the process at the Oregon Department of Justice. We now have written policies and procedures which did not exist before, where it actually goes into the appellate division. It never touches the executive office. It gets run by the attorneys within the appellate division, and there's a handful of folks, and then it could move up to the Solicitor General, who is not in our executive team. It's a step below. And the Solicitor General is in charge of the appellate division to draft that ballot title and gives, if need be, gets the final approval. But often it never gets that far because the law is pretty well established in the way these things must be drafted. So that is the way it works right now. I will tell you, it's very interesting. There was a ballot title where we got attacked in the people make these games, right? So people who want to change the outcome want me to politically influence these things. Those are the people who are going to be upset, right? And that's just the way it is. But people play games to get these things. So they do media pushes, they do different things, they misstate things to the media, and the media attacks us. There was a recent article about how people wanted the ballot measure changed. And what ended up happening is we made some smaller modifications, but because I was out, frankly, I read the news article and was like, oh, maybe that news article, maybe there's something there. But you trust your attorneys, you don't get involved, you let that process go. Ultimately, the Supreme Court upheld what our attorneys had done. So that's kind of the unique nature. Once it's finalized by the Supreme Court, then you start gathering, you have that time period to gather the signatures to then become eligible for the ballot. And most of these ballot titles never qualify to gather signatures. So that was long, windy, but it's one of the fun things you get to do is go through processes and try and make them better.
Well, thank you for explaining that. And yeah, I was trying to find that on the website and was unable to, but that explanation makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that you're kind of staying on the political side of it. So that's awesome.
Thank you. And Dan, we could probably keep you for another 2 hours and just, start asking you questions. We have two candidates who we want to give time to as well. So
Yeah.
we're gonna, and please, look at all your hearts and, gratitude in the chat before you go. And again, if you can stay and just respond to Lauren's question, would totally appreciate it. So, okay, everybody, gratitude for our Attorney General. Thank you, thank you. And we're behind you, and we're going out to talk to the voters.
All right, everybody, have fun. And yeah, it's always good to see everybody.
Take care. Okay, so we are running a little behind for a great cause. And our next candidate coming up is Sierrah Williams. And I know that Mark is going to introduce you.
Thanks, Nancy. Um, I don't know Sierra real well. She's pretty much brand new to not only candidacy, but our Dems party. So I'll just tell you how I met her. We had a meeting, and I'm guessing, but I think it might have been our February meeting, which was Sierra's first meeting, when a chair of our campaign committee asked if there's anybody who'd run for office in a couple of different positions we had open. And Sierra came and talked to me and then showed up the next meeting seriously wanting to do it. So I just want to say thank you very much for doing that and stepping up. Sierra is becoming a bit serious about this. I'll let her take it from here and tell you about herself.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the introduction. And I'll also talk a little bit more about myself because I am kind of an anomaly. I just sort of showed up out of nowhere. Um, I was spending a lot of time seeing those things that our Attorney General was describing, where things aren't fair, where things aren't running the way that they should be. There's a lot of problems in the world, and I felt like I was just watching them happen and not doing anything about it, and wanted to get involved. I showed up to an Ice Out protest that was showing up, and started talking to people, found out where the Lynn County Dems meet. Realized I could make it there on my way home from work, and I was like, I'm just gonna start showing up. I didn't even know what SD6 exactly covered when they asked. They're like, "This one's red. No one's applied for this one." I was like, "Well, I'll see what's going on. How can I help? What can I do?" Found out I lived there. Talked to Mark. Talked to Joanna as well. and learned about the area, learned about candidacy, got access to the candidate guide, and I just feel strongly about running. Who I am a registered dietitian. I care a lot about food. I work with families through the supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. Not only do I work there, but that was my dream job as I was going through school because I really wanted to help those young families, to help kids build a positive relationship with food, particularly those families that don't have access to all those resources that are kind of left behind. In my job, I see how they are still having gaps where they get some resources, we have some referrals, but for housing, it's like get on a wait list. For some food, it's just like we're getting you some formula from WIC. Your food stamps, if you have them, cover some of it, but if you don't have food stamps, then you're running low on formula. Or even with food stamps, you're running low on formula, and then beg your doctor for a sample can. It's awful, it's horrible, and there's times where I'm like, here's everything I can do for you, and it still comes up short. Um, and so I'm seeing these in my job, and that's part of why I wanted to start being active. There were some questions that were sent ahead of time that they wanted to make sure that I focus on for you guys. Um, let's see. Put the interests of my constituents first, and with our colleagues and donors and people like you guys. I hope I am people like you guys, and I'm ready to learn from you and your thoughts and the issues that you face because you guys are on the front line talking to our voters. And I know, like me, a lot of them are feeling the same kind of thing. Like I hear all so often that my vote doesn't matter, like no one's listening to me anyways, and like letting them know that that's not true. Um, Priority issues, I talked about them a little bit. Food, our families, um, healthcare, access to healthcare for all, especially in our rural areas where our families have to drive an hour to get access to care, who have to wait for months, who get their appointment scheduled and rescheduled. Recently, OHP dropped a clinic in Salem, and a bunch of our families were blindsided by that and had to scramble to find different healthcare. And that's just a different, problem. Or I'll talk to people about insurance and insurance paying for their medical formula, and we just get run around in circles trying to find things there. So healthcare, housing, access to food, and also, let's see, childcare. I was talking to Nathan in the Lynn County Dems as well. He talked a little bit about how he does a little bit of work for childcare, and I got like really animated talking to him about that, about access for rural families, about how the food service works for those and how they get reimbursements for those. Anyways, so like I know a lot about childcare. I have kids in childcare. I pay $808 a month for my own son to go through childcare. And if I didn't have a dual income, I would be coming home with like half a paycheck a month after working all month, and it wouldn't be worth it. So I know for our families that don't have that same dual income, that they're just not being able to make it the ends meet. And so I hope that the last question is like my vision for community. It's a community that works together, that we take care of each other, and we focus on those main issues there to make sure that everyone's, reminder that your neighbor should have your back, and that we should be all in this together. And then I wanted to leave time for questions, but I know we're already behind, so I don't want to.
Oh, no. We're so excited you're here. We're so excited you're running. And Sierrah, I did you mention that you come from Sweet Home? You live in Sweet
Oh,
Home?
no, I'm a Sweet Home native, so like not only do I like am I in the district currently, like I've been here the whole time. I did go to BYU for school in Utah to get my master's degree in dietetics. Came back to Oregon because that's where my family's from, and I love Oregon. Um, for other jobs, just to show I'm not super bougie, I've worked as an early morning custodian, I've worked as a janitor, I've worked in food service. Like I know what those jobs are like. While I was pregnant, I was lifting up like big heavy blocks of cheese and like 40-pound bags of brown sugar to make Worcestershire sauce. Like I've done those things too, while going through school. And yeah, I just love this community. I love the people here. But yeah, I'm from here.
That is great. So one thing we always want to ask is, how can people help your campaign?
Mhm. I feel like that there were some questions in the chat, and I do want to make sure that I clarify for everyone who may not be following it or is only listening, like I do sometimes. The Senate, I'm running for Senate District 6, which is the rural halves of Lynn and Lane County, where they've basically cut out all the population centers in Albany and Springfield, Eugene. So it's got part of Jefferson, Lebanon, Sweet Home, Cottage Grove, and then all the other small towns that sometimes you miss if you're just driving and not paying attention. So that's the area that I'm a part of, and I feel like, yeah, I feel like a lot of people just don't know that it's an option, or they feel like they have to vote Republican. Um, I went to a forum on yesterday with Lane Families for Farms and Forests, and the other Republican primaries were there for this, but not Jamie Kate because she doesn't show up to things, and that seemed to be a common theme from other people that were there. And so like letting people know that like you have an option to vote, and it's a really strong option. That it's someone that you can trust to be there for you and for your family. That isn't in it for big money interests. That it could be really helpful. So that people don't feel like they're like, they just vote for whatever. And I know this from experience because my mom's Republican, my dad's Republican, my grandparents are Republican, their parents are Republican. And so I was talking with them, and my mom was just like, I don't even read those things. I just vote Republican all the way down. And that this would be the first time in the general, because she doesn't have the primary ballot, in the general that she'd vote for a Democrat. So just letting people know that like I'm out there. It's yeah, I'm not a spoiler candidate. I'm a real person, I think was one that came up. I'm not I just yeah, I just started getting involved. So that's a little different.
And Sierra, I learned something about your experience speaking to groups of people
Mhm.
after you spoke at our county party. Is it true that you also have done some stand-up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, in college I was in an improv comedy group, Laugh Out Loud, and so I've done some of those things. I embarrassingly, and there is a video online, so hopefully this doesn't come up in the campaign. I embarrassingly spent a long time forgetting the movie The Pirates of the Caribbean. I was trying to guess the scene that I was in, and everyone's like items from the show, and I'm just like, what pirate movie is this? And it took way too long to guess it. So I'm okay being embarrassed in front of a large group of people, which is what I think politics is. So that's really helpful, I think, for the campaign as well.
And you are getting, I hope you are reading the chat because
Oh,
that's some serious support there.
oh, thank you.
And people from Benton County, you can support Sierra too. You can, go to her website, show her some love. And I know that you have a forum coming up
Mhm,
on the 21st
mhm.
in Lebanon.
Yes, there are two forums coming up this month. Both of them are on Tuesdays. Tuesday the 21st at 6:30 is the League of Women Voters. At I'll send links. But there's a
It's
church and then
UMC, you know
the
what?
Chamber of Commerce.
We'll have a slide
Okay.
with that, but I
Okay.
just want to and so what's the other one?
The Lebanon Chamber of Commerce. So they're both in Lebanon. They're both back to back. I feel like there's different groups of people that might show up to each of those. The Chamber of Commerce one is going to be um, probably like more attended, I've heard, by different candidates. And the League of Women Voters might be more casual, more conversations. So that like if you're around. And then I saw a comment, how can we contribute? Another one that I forget always, and it's just because it's not I haven't got it wired in my politics brain yet. One way you can contribute is financially. And so if you go to my website, sierrawilliams.com, there is a donate button, and that links to my ActBlue account. So you can donate through ActBlue there as well. And that'll help me with things like getting the like flyers printed, and which I'm giving out for the neighborhood leader program, and the access to the van network, so I can get some data on how we can actually get that 50% plus one votes, where I can focus my efforts. And I'm trying to be like very conscientious of the money that I'm receiving. I got one donation that was like $9 cash, which I felt was like the cash that person had in their wallet at the time. And when I opened it up, I got home and I cried. I was like, these people care so much, and like you guys care so much for being here. And so I feel that weight. I feel your support too. It's like it's weight and support. It's like a vest. It's like so I don't know. It's really helpful to feel like your contributions, every single one. I just like stand up and I'm like, yay, we got another one contribution. Let's get out there. So it's lovely to hear from you guys as well.
Okay, and how about one final question? Caitlin wants to know, are you going to be able to reach out to Republicans in Sweet Home?
Yeah, I feel like I can. Part of it is I am a little bit of an anomaly. Is I'm super I'm religious as well, and I feel like that's what turns people away, especially in the Sweet Home area, from Democrat candidates. They feel like they're unchristian or they don't support my values. And the people like I've been going to church since I was a kid in this area. I was joking with other people at my church today that they just still see me as like a little 8-year-old running around. And so I feel like I can connect to people on that note, but also because like my a lot of the Republicans in the area are like my mom, just not paying attention, and that's okay. We got a lot of that's the majority of the voter base are people that are not informed, and so if we can let them know that it's just like, hey, I'm not against your values, I'm just trying to support your family, that could help a lot too.
Well, thank you so much.
Mhm.
We were so lucky to have you, and we really big hit. And we will definitely see you again in the general.
Yay!
And
Yeah,
look forward to knocking doors for you and getting out the vote.
yeah. Thank you guys so
Okay,
much. I
take
appreciate everything.
care.
All right. I'll still be here just with muted.
Okay. Um, so it's running a little late, but we are super lucky also to have Representative Sarah Finger-McDonald, who has been waiting patiently and I know feeling great support for Sierra and glad to listen to her. And we're going to ask you to wait just another moment while Carrie introduces you.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Sarah, for hanging in there with us. Representative Finger-McDonald is nearing the end of her first term representing House District 16, which is mostly Corvallis. She's running for re-election, but is currently unchallenged. And that's not very surprising because if there were such a thing, she would have been named Rookie of the Year for the legislature, I'm sure. You can read about her background and legislative committee assignments, follow her bills during the session, and get her contact information from her legislative website, which I'll paste in the chat in just a minute. In addition to winning the Fictional Rookie of the Year, Representative Finger-McDonald would also win the Fictional Pulitzer Prize for Best Legislators Newsletter Ever, if that award existed. So I encourage you to go to her website and sign up to receive this prize-winning newsletter. Being unchallenged, Representative McDonald is not so much here this evening as a candidate, but she's nonetheless graciously agreed to talk to us about the gas tax referendum that will be on the May ballot and anything else that she'd like to share with us. Sarah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking about being a candidate right now because I am unchallenged and I'm already thinking about legislation for 2027. So, um, I'm not doing a great job juggling those two things right now. And I'll probably spend more time helping other people than campaigning for myself, in the upcoming elections. But we do have this gas tax referendum coming. I think of it as the pro pothole referendum because what it's doing is taking away funding that we really need for ODOT to maintain our roads and bridges. Um, we had already asked ODOT to cut back their budget, um, and you know to be as sort of efficient as possible with what they had. So this is not like excess money that's coming to them. It's really money we need to plow roads, fix potholes, maintain our bridges, um, and really keep Oregon going. And we passed the gas tax bill in a special session in in the interim before this last legislative session. And what that bill does is, one, raises the gas tax 6 cents, which um, puts us at 46 cents a gallon. Right now we're at 40. And just for comparison, for our neighbor states, Washington's gas tax is 59 cents a gallon and California's is 71. So this is not an astronomical tax. Unfortunately, this is coming at a time when gas prices are really high, so people are very sensitive to that cost. And really, the reason gas is very expensive right now is because of the Republicans and this unethical, ridiculous war that they have started. And really, those international decisions at the federal level are what are driving your high gas prices. It's not the Democrats with our 6 cents that we're asking for. And the reason we need that tax, and there's also a few other things in the bill I'll mention, but the reason we need that tax is because we have largely, like a lot of states, funded transportation with a gas tax. But our cars have become much more efficient. And so we are bringing in way less revenue, but the cars are still on the roads, and some of those cars are quite heavy because electrical vehicles can be heavy. So the use on the roads hasn't changed, but the amount of money we can bring in through a gas tax has dropped a lot. And so this bill has a 6 cents gas tax. It increases vehicle registration and title fees. It doubles the payroll tax, which is used to fund transit. And that doubling of the payroll tax, which sounds horrible, is from 0.1% to 0.2% on payroll. So it's still not a huge amount. And that piece of the bill sunsets in 2028. So it gives transit a boost and then it goes away. There's also a road use charge that's going to be implemented for electrical vehicles and hybrid vehicles. So those of us who are driving those more efficient vehicles will start to pay our share. And there's a few other things like a clarification of the heavy vehicle tax, which actually the truckers are really excited about. Now, this gas tax referendum only will take away the gas tax increase, the fee increases, and that payroll tax for transit. The rest of the bill won't be touched. There's been a lot of controversy around it because we moved that vote from November to May. And the Republicans said this is a very political decision, but putting it in November was a political decision too, because they wanted it on the ballot for the governor's race. And I think putting it on the May ballot is fabulous for Ed Deal, who really ran this referendum to bring the gas tax to the ballot. So it generated a lot of controversy. The hard thing about it is no new taxes is much easier to tell people than we need more money because your car's gotten more efficient. And so I think I'm sure you'll get questions about it. It's going to be hard to talk about right now because of the price of gas. But I think the important things are that this isn't what's driving the cost of gasoline. And even with the 6 cents increase, our gas tax is low on the West Coast. And that 6 cents increase for the average Oregonian is an increase of about $6 a month. So it's not a huge burden. Although when people are struggling, anything you add to their budget is hard. So that's the gas tax referendum. There's also in the news right now that the same legislators, Ed Deal and Representative Yunker, are starting collecting signatures for a referendum to put the disconnect on the ballot also. Now, that won't be on the May ballot if it happens, it'll be on the November ballot, but it's been in the news a lot, so you might get questions about that also. And that is to, they're calling it the clawback referendum or something. Um, and it's really a reaction to HR1, the big beautiful bill that had 100 tax um, changes to the tax code in it. And because Oregon links to the federal tax code for our taxable income, all of those federal tax changes automatically get applied to Oregon's taxes also. So our revenue was reduced as a state in addition to, the um, reductions that are going to the federal government. And we just disconnected from three of those changes. And we also, in that same bill, um, increased the earned income tax credit for Oregonians, which is one of the best ways to lift people out of poverty. So that piece of it is actually giving money to Oregonians, which is really important. And we instituted a tax credit for job creation. Um, so I'm sure you'll get questions about it. I think the big point is that we're not changing the deductions that people can get from their federal taxes. We're just not applying them to Oregon taxes. So this is not increasing your taxes. It's just saying out of all of the things in the big beautiful bill, we want three of them to not apply to Oregon taxes so that we can bring in really needed revenue. So that's worrisome. They were very successful with the gas tax referendum. And I'm worried about what will happen if they get this second referendum on the ballot. So that was a lot of talking. I'm happy to answer questions if people have it. I also, before I forget, want to mention that there are two town halls coming up with Secretary of State Tobias Reed to talk about voting and the things that he has control of. One is April 25th, which is a Saturday at 10:30 in the morning at Philomath High School. And that's Representative Gomberg, who's the representative in Philomath, and his office have organized that. I think Senator Gelser-Bluen and I are likely to show up. And then the second one is May 6th at 6 p.m. at the LBCC Benton Center. And that one, we organized in our district and they just happen to have they're just happening right at the same time, close to each other. So take your pick. You can come hear about voting and the threats to voting and what we're doing to protect voting in Oregon.
Okay, wait, I'm trying to get this in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat. After I'm done talking, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. So is there anything from the session that you feel like, and I know I put in the chat, if people didn't go to the ledge updates, they really missed it, but what you think we might want to share with voters?
The thing that I am most proud of was the package that a group of us put together that was really focused on protecting immigrants and pushing back on the federal government. My bill in that package was one that requires school districts to notify families and have a plan for if immigration officers show up on K through 12 or our public college or university campuses. We also had bills that are unmasking law enforcement, that are protecting data. We invested in legal representation resources. So it was a really important package. I really felt like it was a statement of Oregon values, and the governor signed all those bills last week. So that was just really meaningful work that felt really good that we could get it done and get it done quickly for Oregonians. We also did a few things to just to help Oregonians. One is we passed a bill that keeps large institutional investors from buying up housing stock in Oregon. Um, so if it protects that housing for 90 days, so it gives families a chance at buying those houses before those institutions sweep in and buy up the housing stock. Um, we required coverage of more preventative care for health insurance that's provided by the state. We did some work around smoothing processes for permitting to help businesses get started, and we did some work around speeding up the siting for large green energy production so that we could help those projects kind of sneak in before the federal incentives for large projects disappear. So I think it was a hard session. It was my first short session, which is a little bit like, I mean, I thought long session was drinking out of a fire hose, but short session was like that too. It was like a week and a day. Um, but I think we did some important things for Oregonians. I mean, I think the disconnect bill is really important for Oregonians, both because of the revenue it'll generate and the um, increase in the earned income credits. So I feel like we we really stood up for Oregonians, and we um, sort of in a lot of ways sort of punched above our weight as a state for the work we did in Oregonians and standing up to the federal government.
Mute, and I'm getting all kinds of things in front of it. Thank you so much. Thank you for being willing to stick around and go a little bit late. But we have so much good information. We're so lucky and we're so grateful. And seriously, thank you for the work done. And
No.
the immigrant justice package was particularly, and I know it sends a message to the community that people care.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
I just feel like it was really meaningful. It was a great example of people coming together to do good work. Um, and I'll put the dates for the town halls in the chat. I also want to say thank you because people always say, "Oh, thank you for your work," and I feel like I am so privileged to do this work and for to have the trust of our community to do this work. And I absolutely feel like I am much happier working hard to do important things than I would be if I were sitting at home wringing my hands. So my mental health is better because I get to do this, and it really is a privilege.
Thank you. And we're going to take that message to neighborhood leaders. Just think how good our mental health is going to be when we get to go out and knock on doors. Take care.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay. So, when I get the information in the website, I'll put it in the slideshow. We'll put it on in the email that goes out as a follow-up to be sure everybody gets it. And if you have any more attention focus left, we do have two of our door knocking stars who are going to be doing a role play. So I'm going to jump right on to that and spotlight. Up, and Susan disappeared, but I can get her back. Okay.
Knock, knock, knock.
Hello. Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I don't know if you remember me. I live down on Chintimony, come around election time.
Yeah, I definitely remember you.
Okay, great.
I was looking forward to seeing you.
Good, thanks. How are you hanging in there?
Well, it's been a lot this last week has been almost worse than all the weeks preceding, which were all terrible.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I hear you. I gotta say, I don't know if you've been following it, but the outcome of the election in Hungary today, where they voted, and that's how they got rid of a fascist regime after 16 years was by voting. And it just, it's a small thing to cling to, but boy, I'm clinging to that really hard. But yeah, so doing our normal thing of talking to folks about the election and just wanted to see, have you gotten your ballot? You all set? You got any questions about getting your vote counted and getting it in on time? Anything like that I can help you with?
No, I don't think so. Expecting my ballot sometime soon, and I pretty much know the procedure. I guess you maybe have some information for me about some of the candidates.
Yeah, we've got this, the literature that we've gotten from them. Everybody that we offer every candidate the opportunity to give us stuff to hand out, and so that's, a lot of people take advantage of it. Some people don't. Some give us more, some less. But here's what we have. One thing I thought I'd alert you to is about getting your ballot in, is that there's been a change with the Postal Service about when they actually postmark ballots now. We can't really count on them being postmarked the day we put them in the box. So if your preference is to return your ballot by mail, we just suggest you do it as early as you can, just to make sure, there's no mix up in it and it gets in time to be counted.
Yeah.
And
I always take mine to that ballot drop-off box because then I don't have to worry about it. I know it'll be counted.
Yeah, I do that too. And I I also personally try to get it in early because you never know when you're going to get a flat tire or, you have to split town for some reason. So great. Well, it sounds like you're all set. Yeah, so the only other thing I'd add is we're encouraging everybody to try to vote the whole ballot. We've got, important congressional primaries, but we also have local, county, and other races too that are just as important if you're able to vote for those.
Well, I did have a question about the federal congressional race because I see that our incumbent is being primaried. And, I realize that with closed primaries, we really want our party to select who we think is the best candidate. Um, but, I don't know. I hear people saying the Democrats aren't doing anything, and I realize they don't have a lot of power right now. And to me, the most important thing of all is that we take back the House, that we don't lose any of our seats. So, I just feel like even though there are some primarying candidates, I just really want to be strategic because to me, the most important thing is that we don't lose those seats. And I mean, I'm never 100% happy with any of my legislators. Well, I don't know. I guess I am with Jeff Merkley, but but I don't expect to be 100% happy with any legislator because they're just humans and they're really having a hard place right now. But I don't know. I'm sort of torn on that congressional vote, but like I said, I just don't want us to lose that seat. That's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, I totally understand. And as a county party, we considered whether or not to endorse one candidate over the other, and we decided not to from the discussion, when before we voted that way. The key things I took away about why we didn't do that were because the, there's certainly differences between the incumbent and the challenger, but they both shared our fundamental values. They both are decent people, and so we thought better to let or not to let, but to not try to put our imprimatur on one over the other, so that the voters really made their own choice, and also with the thought that the more robust of a primary we have, the stronger we are going into November. So, with that said, I personally, my personal view, it aligns with exactly what you said. I'm thinking I haven't really haven't filled in my ballot yet, but I am really leaning toward that strategic concern above all else, which is holding our seat. And and I do believe either of these people would do a really good job. But I want to make sure that we keep that seat and we don't give that to the Republicans in the House. So yeah, I'm right with you on that.
All right. Well, thank you. I will certainly look carefully at my ballot. And like you said, I know it's really important to vote for all the local candidates as well as the federal ones.
Yeah, great. I know. And I know you do this too, but if it occurs to you, if you're having a conversation with somebody and can pass that along, that would be great. Just the more people vote in the primary, the more they're going to be invested in vote in the general and get those ballots in. So great. Well, good to see you, and maybe I'll see you in the hood between now and the next cycle.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. All right.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So, Carrie, you want to talk a little bit about our process in coming up with this role play?
Yeah, we decided to do this because all of us in both in Lynn and Benton counties have some contested primaries for Congress. We also have a contested primary for a county seat here. And the candidates are all good people and good candidates. And so we wanted to have that discussion about how we might handle that at the doors. And when we discussed it as a team, we all had a lot of really good, different, but really good thoughts about why we might vote for one or the other. And we wanted to just talk about how we can have that discussion, whether we've made up our mind or not, and to just to bring this to feeling about it as well.
And we wanted to demonstrate, because we always say this, that we each get to express our own opinion at the door. And you may have a different opinion than what Carrie and Susan said. And you are totally free to express that opinion as your opinion, as they did. And that what we were hoping we would model is how to do it in a respectful way, right? That doesn't overcome the voters' ability to make up their own mind. Susan.
I just wanted to also emphasize that, this is a project of the Lynn and Benton County Democratic parties. And so the names that we give you, the lists we give you, the information we give you about whose doors you're knocking on, and the information that we provide you about candidates is to be used in the way that we have instructed you to use it, and not in any other way. Those lists are not to be used for any other purposes.
Yeah, and Jane or Dennis, I don't know which, had a really good point, and totally agree and want to make that clear, that we offer our personal opinion when asked and not just volunteer it. Here's your ballot and here's what I think about it. Um, um, and so to go back to what Susan was saying, when there's material for two candidates, that's right. What we're saying is we take the material for both candidates and we include both candidates in what we hand out. Carrie.
Yeah, the other thing I just add to is we are free to share our opinions when asked, as we just talked about. But it's also important to be clear about what our county party's view is and to separate what that view is, whether it's an endorsement or a non-endorsement, from what our personal view is. So hopefully I did that and didn't screw that part up.
No, that was great. Thank you. And this has been a lot, and we've been talking at you, but as I said, there is some upcoming stuff, and I just want to end by being sure that I go through this all. So for people in HD 11, Sierrah talked about this. I don't have the Chamber of Commerce one. I can add that. At the same time, in Corvallis, there is a both the city charter changes and also the county commissioner candidates are going to have a forum, and you can submit questions. Here is the form you can use. I think everybody has gotten an email from the Democratic Party of Oregon for this is the statewide neighborhood leader program launch, and it's going to be a week from this coming Thursday at 6 o'clock, and Governor Kotek is the guest, and there's the registration link. And then I'm hoping that people have seen this otherwise, the NAACP is sponsoring two town halls, one on the 18th, that's next Saturday in Albany, and one on the 25th, that's the following Saturday in Corvallis. And you can see some fabulous guest speakers. So if you are Susan.
Just before you move on, I'm just noticing that the town hall on April 25th starts at 11 o'clock. And we heard from Sarah Finger-McDonald that Tobias Reed is speaking at 10:30 in Philomath. Maybe both those things are happening at the same time, but I am not sure about that because I know that Secretary of State Reed has confirmed that he's speaking for the NAACP on April 25.
Well, maybe he's figured out, how to be in two places at the same time.
Maybe he has.
Okay. And then get on your calendar, May Day, important day. And here are two links. This is Oregon specific. Day Without an Immigrant, and this is the National Coalition, and they're hooked together, but there are things coming up. The Honkin' Waves, and then next 2 weeks we will have Representative Gomberg, and then Gabe Shepard, who's going to actually be talking about the Benton County and Corvallis initiatives, and then Boley Commissioner Christina Stevenson. So more fun coming up, and thank you all. We've got the recording, so if you weren't able to absorb everything that Attorney General Rayfield said while he was saying it, you can watch the recording and see it again. We are so lucky that those of us who are in Benton County elected him to office, and that created a path to get him to be the Attorney General. So talk about why the Neighborhood Leader Program is important. He is total proof of it. Okay, thank you all. We're gonna send out annoying emails with the nuts and bolts of how to get your materials. Thank you for bearing with us. You'll get one that has your voter list info, one that tells you about how to get your materials, and then we're going to also remind you of this next Zoom. So a flurry of conversation. Take care. Have a good week. Yay, Hungary. Us next.